Michael Bublé used to be blonde. Yes, he used to also rock a neck-length mullet back in the day. But as a little boy, the voice coach had a full head of bright blonde hair and looked cute as ever. See childhood photos of Michael Bublé in the 80s with a whole head of blonde hair. When Bublé was growing up in Canada in the 80s, his hair was blonde and longer than you've ever seen it before. In February 2023, the Haven't Met You Yet singer posted 4 childhood photos of himself on Instagram that showed his sunshiny locks. In one photo, Bublé is striking a pose on top of a playground, and in another he's standing in front of a Christmas tree, wearing a jacket and big gloves. In another photo of Bublé as a young boy, he's sitting in a chair and smiling for the camera in some cozy pajamas. In the last photo, Bublé is a bit older and sitting in the same chair, this time wearing all white and giving his best blue steel look. Bublé's fans loved seeing these childhood photos of the singer and agreed, yes, the 80s were pretty amazing. Great music, good times, great hair. One fan commented on the post about the eras, while another wrote, definitely no need to change your mind. Others felt a rush of nostalgia seeing the photo of Bublé in his zip-up pajamas. Oh my gosh, the Montreal fleece onesie pajamas. How 80s and Canadian at the same time. One commented while one said, I can still feel the polyester on those jammies. It was possible to hear the sound of a voice echoing off the brick walls of a jazz bar that was filled with smoke. This caused people's hearts to flutter. It was not the typical deep timbre of an experienced crooner. Rather, it was a sound that was more youthful, fresh, and full of promise. It was a sound that brought to mind the feeling of a great night, summer breezes, and laughter. The voice belonged to a young Michael Bublé, a man who was destined to take over the world of music. Nonetheless, this was not the refined singer that we know and love today. No, this was Michael before he became famous, before he had a polished image, before he received prizes and acclaim. This was Michael with a full head of sunshine blonde hair, and it was nearly difficult to not be fascinated by him. Imagine that he was only a few years younger than you, and that he was still in his 20s. He was standing on stage with the kind of self-assurance that can only be achieved when you are aware, on a fundamental level, that someone was born to do this. In spite of the fact that his smile was a little crooked, it was wonderfully appealing. His eyes gleamed with a hint of mischief. His face was framed by his unkempt hair, which glowed like golden sunlight and was almost too perfect to be genuine. In the 1950s and 1960s, the hairstyle was a true monument to the effortless cool that was prevalent during that time period. It was the kind of hair that appeared to be on the cover of an old magazine. As he swayed to the music, his voice effortlessly wrapped itself around each note, and his blonde locks, which were just a shade brighter than honey, appeared to glitter. Every person who can recall that period of time will agree that there was something so appealing about his appearance. His energy was the ideal combination of youthful enthusiasm and the sense of an ancient soul. Not only was he impossible to fall in love with, but he was also quite appealing. He wasn't just singing for the sake of singing, Michael was singing. With his voice, he was narrating stories to the audience. He was able to transport you to a whole new place with his songs. It was a place where the world was full of romance, optimism, and possibilities. His songs did not simply live in the present instant. At the moment that he and his band hit the stage, it was impossible not to take notice of the manner in which he engaged with the audience. There was an unsaid link between him and every person in the room, and it was apparent that there was energy between them. That extraordinary capacity of his to make you feel as though you were the only one in the room, as if every line he sang was designed specifically for you, was one of his remarkable abilities. Every note would cause his hair, which was a sunny blonde mop of curls, to bounce, giving the impression that it was also dancing to the rhythm of the music. You could hear a gentle warmth in his voice whenever he sang. It was a sensitivity that could only come with experience, yet it was still wrapped in the innocence of childhood. Despite the fact that Michael had not yet reached the level of international fame that he would eventually achieve, his voice and presence were already something quite remarkable. Oh, the one with the unfettered blonde hair and effortless charisma. This was despite the fact that Michael had become known for his sleek and smart style as he grew older. When people saw Michael Bublé perform, they would think to themselves, "He's the guy we want to hear sing our favorite love songs." This was the Michael Bublé that appeared on stage. It was not necessary for him to exert a great deal of effort in order to fascinate the audience, because everything about him, including his voice, his appearance, and his energy, came together in perfect harmony. He had the ability to attract people to him like a magnet, and everybody who had the opportunity to watch him play at that point in his career felt as though they were witnessing the beginning of something truly remarkable. It is difficult to not picture him, the youthful Michael Bublé, strolling around the streets of Vancouver when he was in his early 20s, with his sun-kissed hair shining brightly beneath the brilliant lights of the city, not just because of his physical appearance, but also because he exuded an identifiable aura, a kind of magnetic confidence that distinguished him from others. This was the reason why people would look twice at him. It seemed as if his head of blonde curls was formed of energy itself, since they would bounce a little with each stride he took. He had the kind of look that made you consider the possibility that at some point in the future, this individual was going to be very successful. Yes, he did in fact do it. It was abundantly evident to those individuals who had the good fortune to hear Michael sing before the others of the world became familiar with his name that he was not merely a passing fad. A young man with a voice that could captivate the soul and an energy that made it abundantly evident that he was destined for greatness. He was the kind of person who was the real deal. It was not his intention to emulate the greats who had come before him. Rather, he was working to establish his own legacy by combining the most successful aspects of the past with the uniqueness of his own personality. Moreover, Michael's physical appearance changed over the course of time. On the other hand, the stylish clothes got more fitted, and the blonde hair changed color. However, the early version of him, the one with the rosy golden hair, was always something that admirers would remember about him. It was the hair that served as the starting point for a journey that will live long in the memory. It was a representation of the light-hearted and carefree spirit of youth that would go on to win the hearts of people all around the world. In addition, despite the fact that he evolved into the sophisticated and suave Bublé that we are familiar with today, the vitality and essence of the young guy with the golden hair never completely left him. It was always there, just below the surface, and it reminded us of the young kid who once stepped onto a stage with his golden hair catching the sun, and he left all of us entranced by the wonder of his voice. There was one thing that was abundantly obvious throughout it all. Michael Bublé has always possessed that particular something. Whether it was the evident force of his voice or the sunshine blonde hair that brought a touch of lightness to his attractiveness, he carried it with him. He was a charming individual. A journey that would span decades and continue to touch the hearts of millions of followers all around the world began with that full head of golden curls. This was just the beginning of an unbelievable adventure. Therefore, the image of a young Michael Bublé with a full head of sunshine blonde hair will forever remain a moment that has been fixed in time. It is a moment when the world was introduced to the guy who would go on to become a recognized icon all over the world. Despite the fact that he is now an older man, the golden-haired version of him will always be remembered by his supporters as the beginning of something truly wonderful. Bublé certainly has fond memories of growing up in Canada, whether he was wearing Montreal-branded PJs or ice skates in the living room with his siblings. "Dude, I'm so Canadian, are you kidding me?" he said during a 2024 appearance on The Kelly Clarkson Show after she showed the voice coach a childhood photo of himself, smiling in full hockey gear. "I remember how excited I was to get that. I'm a huge Vancouver Canucks fan. Anything hockey, I would die for that. My mother, I love you mom and you're a good mom, but she would put me in a full jacket. I said, 'What are you doing?' And she said, 'You're gonna be jelly beans,'" he recalled, adding that she blew up balloons, stuck them to him, and then wrapped him in plastic wrap. When he asked her what the costume was supposed to be, she said, "You're a pack of jelly beans."